Marillion.
Welcome back, my friends, to the In Obscuria podcast, a podcast where we exhume obscure rock and punk and metal, and we put them in one of three categories: the lost, the forgotten, or the should have beens. My name is Kevin Williams, and I'm joined this week. You're not going to believe it. Look who's here.
Who?
Robert Harrison.
Oh, me. Yes, I believe it. I'm here.
What's going on, my friend?
Oh, just doing my research, show prep, like I always do. Hours and hours of show prep before we hit the switch to record.
So amazing. The staff hooked you up this week.
Yeah, I'll admit that. I got some help from the staff.
That's awesome. And what do you have to share with us, sir?
A lot of things I was researching so that, I can speak from an expert podium here. But, Rockin' Pod was on my mind and delving deep into that.
What is this Rockin' Pod you speak of, sir?
It's something we're going to in Nashville, and a bunch of people go there and talk about podcasts that deal with rock and other forms of music too.
No, it says Rockin' Pod. It has to be rock.
Rock and pod.
Well, no, it's N.
It's not in. Is it
rock
in?
N.
Oh, it is. It's in. It's not and. So it can mean anything.
There's Rock in Pod.
But guess who's going to be there?
Who?
Matt Pinfield.
Matt Pinfield.
He's interviewed every single person that's ever picked up a guitar in the world.
He did one of the weirdest Kiss videos too.
Well, he did a video?
Well, it was like a documentary.
Oh, okay.
But it was around the reunion tour, and I don't know, his voice going over a Kiss documentary just felt weird to me.
It didn't mix well. Well, speaking of Kiss, who's this guy, Gary Corbett?
Oh, he was the keyboard player.
Keyboard.
Yeah, he was the guy behind the stage.
Well, he's going to be there
keys.
too.
Awesome.
So he gets credit here. They say he was in Kiss and Cinderella, but I couldn't remember any mentions of him before. So he was one of those people behind the curtain.
Yeah, he was behind the curtain. The guy.
Okay.
Playing the sound effects and keys and all the 80s stuff, I believe.
Yeah, Jason Bieler, Saigon Kick.
Nice.
Talisman, don't know who that is. Anthony Corder, Tora. Sandy Gennaro, Joan Jett. Wow, that's going way back. Tommy Scooch.
Scooch.
How much do you want in your coffee? Just a scooch.
Make sure when you meet him, you say, "Hey, Mr. Scooch."
I was going to bastard every one of these names. I'm just going to bastardize them. Let's see. Mark Goodman from early MTV days, like when it was actually
the white
good.
Man with the fro.
Yes. Don Jameson.
Comedian.
Yeah, comedian. Ron Keel.
Comedian. No, I'm sorry.
And somebody's extremely attractive. Good Lord have mercy.
Oh, that's the tatted girl, right?
Leah Vendetta.
Yeah, so do you know who she is?
I don't care. I just want to be there in the same room, yes.
She was on one of the seasons of Ink Masters, so she is a tattoo artist.
Oh, yeah, I don't watch TV and shit.
But, well, she's also Ricky Ratman.
I was going to butcher that one too, because it has a T in it.
Yeah, well,
I want to say Rockman, but it's
she's
Rackman.
His girlfriend.
Oh.
So I'm pretty sure that's why she's there.
Yeah.
But she was on Ink Masters. So
okay. Well, I would watch it.
She's the only person I really want to meet.
Yeah. I want to just fan her. Hello.
I actually love Ink Masters, man.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, this thing's taking place August 6th through the 8th. It's coming up, a couple months away. So,
couple of months? Oh, my God.
Few months.
Okay, few months.
Not a
Good
couple.
Lord.
Couple is
I was
not
going to say,
right.
I got to get packing.
Several months away, but still.
Do we have a wardrobe where we dressing up? Costumes?
Yeah, absolutely. Fig leaves.
Okay. It'll be warm.
Yeah, we'll be good.
It'll be fine for
It's
that.
Nashville, man. It's going to be hot.
Yep.
Be hot. We're eating hot chicken.
Nashville hot chicken. We're going to be so sick by the end of the weekend.
Oh, man.
Eating poorly.
Yeah, can you imagine how well we're going to eat it?
We're going to drink well and eat poorly.
Oh,
That's
man.
the whole weekend.
Well, after you chunder in the land down under, listen to Pot of Thunder, Growing Up Rock, Slamfest Podcast, Decibel Geek, Podcast Rock City, Cobras and Fire, The Hustle, Rock Strikes 10, Metal Up Your Podcast, The Dummy Room, History Science Theater, State of Amorica, Potter Than Hell, Podkissed, The Kiss Room, I Love It Loudcast, Ages of Rock, The Synaptic Empire, and don't forget about Monty's Rockcast. Come visit us at inobscuria.com, like us, share us, and recommend us. Facebook, Twitter, and the Instagram.
So, hey, I need to have a little talk with you. Can you step to my office here?
Oh, no.
Yeah, just come on in. Come on in. Hey, close the door behind you, too. Just have a seat. We're going to be here a minute.
What is this?
So it's that time. It's been a few months, and it's time for our quarterly review. So we'll talk about your performance here with this podcast.
Oh, God. Does that mean
We got a review.
We I can't believe it. We got a review.
We actually got a review. So quarterly reviews, because we get them about 4 times a year.
This is time for our quarterly review. I get it, man. Cool. Let's see. Who is this from? This is from, must be one of your friends. Baby Daddy 9.
Not going to call them out on air, but they got a lot of child support payments.
She's a hooah. Okay, so it says, new to the show, fun. Hello, exclamation point.
Nice.
Great show, exclamation point.
They're excited. They're on top of it.
I'm sorry about whatever I said about you, Baby Daddy 9.
Yeah.
This is great so far. Listening to the Grunge app and typing while hearing Sweetwater, King of 79 tune. Awesome. Also making me go back to my Urge Overkill, which I forgot about spinning 25 years ago. Nice.
Nice.
That's it. 5 stars.
Wow.
5 stars.
Excellent. Good for
That
you.
is a,
for
I mean,
us.
this quarter, I would say we hit our... Woo! All right. And now that that's done, thank you for listening. It was great.
Thank you. Please send us another review next quarter.
We had lots of shares last week as well. So
SHARE.
shares.
Not CHERs. We didn't have any of those.
Yes. you had me there for a minute. Like, are there multiples? I don't know.
No.
Yeah, man. So people on the interwebs, thank you so much.
Yes.
Very cool. So let's get into this week's topic. Again, I was awoken in the middle of the night. This seems to be a new thing for me. I no longer have to use the Ouija board. I no longer have to conduct a seance. Apparently,
Is it
they're
your
just
prostate?
coming to me.
You just wake up every 3 hours to go to the bathroom?
It was not a prostate
Not
thing.
a prostate
no,
thing. Okay.
No, I did not have to urinate. No, I was awoken in the middle of the night because there was a damn light on downstairs and the door was open.
Yeah, you got to police that house, man. Close the door.
So
Go to the
anyway,
board.
I'm like, why is there a light on? You know, that's going to frustrate me. So I had to get up and go downstairs. And guess what it was? It was
A poltergeist.
Neon greenish glow, also known as my fish tank.
Fish tank running in the middle of the night.
Fish tank on in the middle of the night. And man, is that thing dirty. I wish somebody would clean it other than me.
The fish normally take care of a lot of that, but you need...
No, all they do is mess it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
sloppy fish.
I knew I had cut it off
Okay.
before I went to bed. I always cut it off before I go to bed because I don't want to, fish need to sleep too.
Yeah.
You don't want to.
You got to have their
That's
downtime.
like torture for them.
Yeah,
right?
your kids
Leave
keep
the light
them up
on.
all day.
Exactly. So I've got one fish with cataracts. I can see a cataract in his eye.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, it's pretty gross.
Don't fry and eat that one.
No, just take the eyeball out first.
Oh, yeah. It's a delicacy.
Yeah. But anyway, I knew I'd cut it off. So I also knew that this must be some sort of sign in the middle of the night, or either somebody was playing a sick joke on me. But here's what I boiled it down to. These were the signs that I think there were just 2 things that I can interpret here. The fish were telling me to clean the tank. Mm-hmm. That was my first thought.
Yeah.
But then I remembered that their brains are so tiny that they would forget to tell me to clean the tank as soon as the thought came to their head.
Right.
So that can't be it. That one's
Worse
out.
memories than I have.
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
only creature in the world.
I must have been a fish in another life because
Yeah.
that kind of is me. So the second thing, and this is what I knew, this is it. This has to be it. They wanted to give me the theme for this week. So neon colors, fish. Yep. I got it. Episode 75, our Diamond Jubilee episode, by the way.
Is it Diamond Jubilee?
I don't know.
That sounds
I
good.
might be making that up.
75th anniversary?
Sounds good to me. It's not an anniversary, but episode.
Episode 75.
Whatever. Grave mistake. Marillion should have been huge. 1980 to 1989.
That's the fluorescent.
Fluorescent time. And guess who the singer was? Fish.
Was his name.
Fish was his name-o.
Nemo.
So it had to be.
Yeah.
I think that's right. So we're going to go with
The
that.
neon. God, I was just thinking about that the other day. Oh, the neon.
So-
all day long.
2 episodes ago, episode 73, we talked about Marillion, and it was a grave mistake. They should have been huge. We also talked about how much content they have, how many albums, how much great material they have, that we could not do it in 1 episode, not 2 episodes. No, it's going to take probably 3 or 4 episodes to get through the Marillion catalog. And last time we talked about the 90s, and we talked about the band when H, with their second singer, joined the band, late 89s when he joined. And we talked about the whole 90s of making albums with him.
And that's the version that I'm familiar with and I love. love all that stuff. So it's going to be cool to hear the beginnings.
Yeah. And, we also mentioned in that episode the whole history of the band, but basically they're an English neo-prog band. They are the neo-prog band, as we mentioned. They were formed in 79 and basically started this movement of a prog band in the 80s and different from a prog band in the 70s, right? Because they were embracing new wave. They were embracing the punk that was in between the proggy giants of the 70s and then the 80s. And it was just, it was a different sound, but it was still proggy. Different thing, and they were kind of the leaders in the UK. And again, there were two distinct versions of this band. The 80s band was mainly known for, that's really when they had their big hits across both sides of the pond. And the reason that we talked about the 90s last time is because that's when I came into them. But it didn't take me long to go back and start listening to the stuff with Fish. And Fish was their first singer. Again, he was there for the first 4 albums. And you don't think that's much, but as we get into it, you'll see there's a lot there. And they were sort of seen as a punk new wave version of Genesis. And they got compared to Genesis a lot. And a lot of that has to do with Fish, his vocals alone, his delivery, and even the content and the way he writes his lyrics. So he's actually a Scottish dude in an English band, but I don't know why they call him Fish. Didn't do the research on that, so bad stuff.
Did he smell like a fish?
I don't know.
Eyes like a fish?
I don't know. But
he could swim really well?
Maybe. Originally, this band was called Silmarillion.
Semi-rillion?
Silmarillion. And that comes from a Tolkien book. So that's all based on a J.R.R. Tolkien, which is about as nerdy prog as you can possibly get.
Wow. Yeah, that's two nerd worlds combined.
That is nerd. And they shortened it to Marillion in 1981 to avoid any potential copyright conflicts.
That was smart.
Very smart.
Very smart.
And it just sounds better, too.
Yeah, it does. Silmarillion.
So much
lots of syllables and things.
Fish, with this band, he had really trippy, vivid lyrics, great storyteller. He kind of has I don't know, as you listen to it, try to describe how his vocals come across to you, his delivery. I don't know exactly how to describe it, but it's very Scottish to me. It just sounds like a Scottish storyteller in a way. But you tell me once you start hearing it. With Fish, they had 4 top 10 UK albums, including a #1 album in 1985 called Misplaced Childhood, and they had 11 top 40 hits on the UK singles chart and 1 on the Hot 100 in the US. So if anybody out there has just sort of heard of Marillion before, it's probably this version of the band that we're going to be talking about. And actually, we had some comments in Facebook from Captain Ryan who said, "Oh yeah, I remember them. I really liked Kaylee." Well, that was the one song that was in the Hot 100 in the U.S., but it's a brilliant song. But that is the band with Fish, and we'll be covering that period today. So let's jump into it. Their first recordings, they did some demos in the summer of 1980, and then they signed with EMI, and they released their very first single in 1982, which for some reason didn't make it to their first album a year later, which is kind of weird. Usually you would think if you have a hit
that
single,
would go on the
you
album.
would put it on the album, but they did not. So their first gig was at the Red Lion Pub at 35 Market Square. And this first single that they put out is called Market Square Heroes, so there must be something there. Now, what's interesting, this is a single. It did fairly well. It was number 53 in the UK chart. I mean, for a brand new band without an album, that's pretty cool.
I'd take that.
Yeah, I'd take that too. Again, US, we had no clue who this band was yet. But here's the interesting thing about this single. If you buy the 12-inch version of the single that came out in 1982, this is the first time you ever heard this band. The B-side is a 17 minutes, 15-second long song called Grendel.
Just lay it out there. Fill up this whole 12-inch with one song.
Essentially making it an EP.
Yeah, instead of an album.
And this is where the Genesis comparisons began, because Grendel had sounded very similar to some of the old Genesis long-form songs that used to be out there. But the balls on a band to have a single, which is a decent 3.5, 4 minute single, and then have a B-side that is over 17 minutes long. I mean, that's symbolic.
It's just laying it out there.
It's just laying flop. It out. Pretty amazing. Now, the other thing that this single started, and this is a thing unique to the Fish era, is the cover art. It was designed by a guy named Mark Wilkinson, and everything during the Fish era was done by Mark Wilkinson. Sort of like if you think about Iron Maiden, how they had Derek Riggs early on, and he did all of that artwork, and you could always find his little symbol. I always thought it was fun on the album covers to try to find the Derek Riggs symbol.
The Where's Waldo of the album.
Exactly.
Art world.
It was always a big deal to go find that. Well, Mark Wilkinson was their Derek Riggs in a way. So he basically created the visual that I think helped the appeal of the band so much. He designed the Jester, which is what they used on all the albums with Fish. Everything was very kind of 80s modern surrealism, featuring a trademark logo that they used during this era and a recurring Jester character. And that is really what grabbed my attention. Remember, I said last time that I was at a record show in Charlotte, North Carolina, looking for Kiss bootlegs, and I kept seeing these big posters and all this imagery of this guy's artwork, which said Marillion and had all this bright colored, surrealistic looking paintings of this Jester and kind of creepy cool, you know, a little weird, but weird enough to where I really dig it because I like weird stuff. So you'd probably like it too. So anyway, he would go on to do other bands' covers, which I didn't realize, but he did covers for Judas Priest, and he did that latest Iron Maiden Book of Souls album cover. So
wow.
the last tour that you and I saw, all that artwork.
While I passed the kidney stone.
Exactly. He had done all of that. So kind of cool. So let's jump into this 17-minute long. No, just kidding.
We'll end the show with it.
No, we won't.
It's like we did the last time.
No, we won't. We're going to do a little Market Square Heroes. So here's the very first output that anyone heard from Marillion, 1982.
Declare the
I'm sure you can attest or confirm to all the listeners that I've never been into prog rock. Just could never really get into it. I had a short attention span. But it's funny, you posted a photo of a Genesis album a few weeks ago on Facebook that you were listening to that day. Mm-hmm. And then after that, some freaking algorithm picked that up. And the random videos you get in between your friends post about bitching about this or bitching about that were these old school video or film footage of Genesis, Yes, and a couple other prog rock bands. I didn't recognize one of them. I should have written it down. That could have been good fodder for an episode. But anyway, it was Genesis was one of them. They're really young. This must have been early in their career. Peter Gabriel had long hair, and I've always pictured him with short hair because that's what I knew from the 80s. Mm-hmm. And so I can't believe how much this sounds. And just like you said, it's freaking obvious that they sound just like Genesis. Not a little. He sounds a lot like Peter Gabriel and has the same delivery. I can only imagine how animated he would be on stage. The way he sings, like I could see him acting out these scenes that he's singing about life and what he's done, the rust on his hands from the factory gates. It just paints a really cool picture. And the fact that I actually got into it, that's what surprises me, that, how our brains morph and change over the years. And, I got into some other stuff that I never thought I'd like. And then, all of a sudden I'm listening to old Genesis, and it was a 20-minute song. Mm-hmm. And I sat there and listened to the whole thing. The Yes got a little old after about 10 minutes. So I was like, okay, this sounds like a lot of the Yes stuff. But the Genesis...
How dare you, sir?
Yeah, I know. It was blasphemy. But at least I like the Genesis one. Maybe I'll get into the Yes later on. But the Genesis one was really fascinating. It was a really eclectic song. I can't remember now what it was, but I'd never heard of that. Like, I got into like The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Yeah. When their stuff got bigger, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. closer to the 80s or in the 80s, before it went into the poppy Genesis.
Yeah, Lamb was still Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, so that part of Genesis,
that was his last hurrah.
Right. The songs got really big, and that the earlier stuff I just never got into. But now I'm appreciating. And once again, I have no concept of what it's like to play a song that's 20 minutes long. How do you remember is the next chord G or F sharp? Like, it's amazing all the changes, stops and starts in the prog rock that they remember where they are. So getting back to Marillion now with Fish and his voice sounding just like Peter Gabriel. This is 1982.
1982.
So normally it's when the bands are a year or so old and they get popular, record companies go to look for anything else that sounds like it. Grunge, when that came out, if you sounded remotely like Nirvana, you probably got signed for a couple of years. But then after that kind of fades away. So it's interesting that even in 1982, somebody thought, it's probably a good idea. A band that sounds like Genesis that's been around for years.
Well, and the thing that's different about this is you can hear a little bit of that new wave approach. You can hear a little bit of punk edge into it, although not that much.
Not much, but a little.
But it was coming out of that time period, especially in the UK. Punk was a whole different scene over there than it was here. It was much more in the pop world, crossover at least. And they kind of came in right after that. So if you think about other things we've talked about in the UK that were happening at the same time where this does fit in, is new wave of British heavy metal was also going on at this exact same time. So it all kind of fits together as it's new, it's different, yet it's based on stuff that we've loved in the past. And, like I said, this band with this first single started the neo-prog movement. So kind of like, so many of these other movements like grunge, this was kind of in the UK at least, this was kind of the Nirvana that opened the floodgate for several other bands that would get signed because this happened to hit
the next wave of something that had already waved once.
And something that's kind of interesting out of this is, Genesis, even though they get compared here to Genesis had gone a different route by this point, more so adult, more poppy. And this still
radio friendly.
Yeah, more radio friendly. And this still had a more hard rocking edge to it.
Yeah.
And even some of the delivery that Fish has, while it's like Peter Gabriel, it could also be sort of like a young Bruce Dickinson.
I was going to bring that up. That did pop in my head, just a glimmer of Bruce Dickinson and his delivery. And so I can see where that would cross over. And they were out and popular by then.
82, I believe that's when Bruce joined Maiden.
Oh, that's right, because he didn't join until after I forgot he was the second one.
Before then, he was Bruce.
Bruce.
Yes.
Just Bruce?
That was his stage name. He went by Bruce before he was Bruce Dickinson.
Like the Bruce Dickinson. Just Captain Dickinson.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think there's a little more anger, a little more edginess to what Marillion was doing than the bands from the 70s that were considered kind of dinosaurs. Even though they were...
It was only 6 or 7 years old.
Even though they were carrying it forward.
But still, like, yes, the video I saw was from 1969. So keep in mind, it was prog rock, but it had been there and done, and they had morphed and changed. And so maybe there was this desire to go back to some of the earlier days where it was more edgy.
Yeah. So let's move on to their very first album. So again, that was their first single, and then their first album comes about after they, signed with EMI in 1983. And it established this band as the leader of this neo-prog movement in the UK, which again, we had no clue what that was all about in the US. We didn't, unless you were in the know or, listening to some college station somewhere in New York, you probably didn't know anything about this.
No, I was 12 years old. I did not know anything about that. I just, a year before, discovered Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. That was how deep I was into pop rock.
And it's interesting reading articles about this album, this first album, listening to it all these years later, because I did not get into it until probably 92, 93-ish, when I started going backwards and looking for Marillion stuff. And the first Fish album that I came across was a live album, which we're going to play from later. But everything that I read about this album, which is called Script for a Jester's Tear, is that this was a dark approach to prog rock that had never been done before, which I don't know if that's just spin on trying to make it something different, but I don't really know that I hear that. The other thing that I kept reading was it blends hard rock and new wave with the prog, which I do agree with. That's kind of what they were going for.
All right.
And because Steve Rothery, the guitarist who we talked about last time, he's he evolved into this minimalist play when you need to and flash when you need to. Early on, he's going to be you're going to hear him being a little more 80s, a little more forward, a little more flashy. But we know what he grows into is this amazing guitarist with restraint, which is just so hard to do for these guys, but they do
I never
well.
achieved that, but
No. I show all my tricks in one song.
At anything I do in life, there is no restraint.
This album reached number 7 and spent 31 weeks in the UK albums chart. Wow. It eventually went platinum and had a top 40 single called He Knows You Know and a top 20 single called Garden Party. Now, typically when we do these shows, I stray away from the singles because my thought is if you know anything about this band, you probably have like a greatest hits or something like that. But their singles are so damn good for these Fish albums that I can't not play one of the singles.
I appreciate it because I've never heard them.
Yeah, and if you don't know much about this band, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so I'm going to play one of the singles. In fact, a lot of these songs today are going to be singles, and the reason is they're just the best songs on the album. They picked the right songs for their singles. And the fact that these songs were singles and they're kind of proggy is just crazy. To think that they were considered for a radio station is
a lot of time between commercials. DJs need to go take a every once in a while, so they play these 20-minute songs.
Well, see, they took the right approach, though. Their singles are not long songs.
Yeah.
So they knew what a single was, and they built the songs correctly to be a single. So they're not super long. Their album cuts are longer. But this is also the only, you just heard a song and this song, these are the only times that they had their original drummer, Mick Pointer. He was only on the first album. He was one of the guys who, this was his band. He kind of put this band together, and he's only on the first album.
Oops.
So here's what Fish says about Mick Pointer. Apparently he's a big fan. He said, he describes the drummer's timing as awful and failure to develop as a musician with the rest of the band as we went on.
Oops.
Okay, failure to develop as a musician with the rest of the band.
That's a cut.
They've only been around 2 years.
There was something else. He had a BO problem or something. There was something else up in his crawl about this guy.
Fish wasn't even an original guy.
No, and he came in a little bit later. Cleaned the plate.
He cleaned house, man.
Yeah. Oh, you found the band. So what? Get out.
So if you want to go and look and see what Fish looks like, he seems like a big kind of, not burly, but he seems like a guy who would command attention as a front man and as a leader of a band.
So now you know why I bought the band van, because I figured if I owned the band van, I wasn't getting kicked out.
You can call the shots too. You can get rid of that drummer. Oh my God, you did that.
What?
So something else that's cool about this first album, 1983 this comes out, and if you think about where the 70s prog bands were at this point, we talked about Genesis, they were kind of doing pop hits by then. Some of the others were really floundering or just gone. And by Marillion getting kind of big in the UK, it actually helped some of the bands that were still around, like Yes. Think about 1983 was when Yes made their big change, right? They went kind of pop, but they were still Yes. They had a number one hit.
It was like
that year.
show off pop. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
you want a pop song?
Yeah.
Let me show you how it's done.
Yeah, so Owner of a Lonely Heart came out then. And then even bands like Jethro Tull, who had just really gone down as far as album sales.
Oh, that was the other one that kept popping up my feed. I've had like 4 different Jethro, like out of nowhere, Jethro Tull videos were popping up.
Man, that's really good stuff.
Yeah.
So even the success of Marillion helped Tull because they had a couple of kind of hits in this same territory. They went this same route as Marillion because they could see that, oh, that's working. They're kind of stealing from us. We're going to do that
Jethro
again.
Tull never really had his 80s pop hit. I'm trying to think.
Well, in the UK, they did.
Oh, in UK. Okay.
yeah,
So I don't remember any here in the US.
Yeah,
like
not
Yes
so much here.
and other bands like that.
But they definitely were trend following in the 80s. Tull, I'm talking about, with what Marillion was doing and with kind of new wave. They've got a couple of 80s albums that are just gold bad albums to like where they're trying to be new wave.
And it's just
amazing. It's so bad.
So
it's
bad.
Good.
Well, then I smell an episode.
I do too.
So bad, it's good.
There's some of
Write
that.
that down.
I've been working on this for a while.
Okay.
It's just.
I'm looking forward to that one. It's so bad, it's
fine,
good.
disgusting wine.
It's gourmet cheese. Really gourmet cheese.
Oh, and so Mark Wilkinson's art, obviously on this album cover, and they went so far, they've got the Jester on there again, they went so far as to call the album Script for a Jester's Tears. So they're really playing into the character of the Jester, who has become synonymous now with Marillion. It's been all the singles, all the single covers, all the album covers, everything that has fish on it will have the Jester on it throughout his career with this band. So with that, we're going to play the single, which was a top 40 single in the UK. Again, in the US, we didn't know. We didn't know anything about it. But here's He Knows, You Know.
something to end?
Problems.
Oh, Problems. Sorry. Okay, where do I start? Good God. All right, so the opening guitar riff.
It looked like you were digging it. I'm just going to say.
Okay, well, looks are deceiving. No, I'll get there. The opening guitar riff, before the vocals came in or anything else came in, it was Tool. Go back and listen to that opening guitar riff, and then I had the epiphany that Tool's a prog rock band.
They are a prog band.
I've never thought of them as, I just thought of them as Tool. They're just
really?
They're their own thing.
Yeah, they're definitely a prog band.
Yeah, but I was like, damn it, they are a prog band. And then going further, he sounds more unhinged in this song. He's like he's playing a character that is unhinged, problems, and this maniacal character.
Yeah.
And it made me realize he may be more dramatic in his delivery than the dearly beloved Ronnie James Dio, who was the master of drama and delivering the lyrics about rainbows and mountains and quests and things. So there's so much similarity between him. Like, I would love to have heard Dio cover that song, because it sounds like it would be a slam dunk for him. It just like he would latch onto this drama and how he's just emoting in the song. And it was just I was analyzing the song, and then the guitar lead kicked in. And I dug it. And that's when it was just like, that's right. We talked about this on the previous episode, the similarities of him and David Gilmour. Mm-hmm. The guitar tone was almost exactly the same. Wasn't too much. Made me want a little bit more, which I love that. Just, lead me in there and tease me a little bit, and bam, then it's over. Like, damn it. And then it went back to the song again. And, so it had its high point there at the guitar lead. But it was an interesting song. Not quite as much as the first one, but with that lead in there, you draw me in. If you promise me, hey, there's going to be a guitar lead in this 6-minute song, I'll listen to it.
That's interesting. You're bringing up Gilmour again. So we'll talk about Fish again in a second. But yeah, so I was thinking, I was just listening to Pink Floyd's other album that was released in the 80s today that I hardly ever listen to, but when I do, man, it's good. And David Gilmour's guitar in
Which
the final cut, man.
Oh, the final cut. Yeah. I love
when
that.
Gilmour rips into those leads, and we know that he was very angry when he was making that album. He was not happy with that. But his leads were almost similar tone-wise to exactly what we just heard.
And that's why it draws me in every single time.
It was very much a Final Cut type lead in this song.
And that's an emotional album. It gets way overlooked. It's overshadowed by The Wall. It's basically the remainder songs from The Wall that they cut out, put them on there. And yeah, you're absolutely right. When he was recording that was the height of his frustration with lots of things, Roger and other stuff going on. And I had one experience in a recording studio similar to that, where I was just, the immaculate guitar solo, where we'd recorded a bunch of songs and we still hadn't recorded that solo because I didn't know what to play. And the time came to record that solo, and they hit record, and everybody's looking at me to play a solo. And I did.
Something out of your ass.
And I pulled something out of my ass as one of the best solos I ever played. And I had to go back and learn what I played, because it was like an out-of-body experience. So sometimes you need to be put in those situations where, it's drawn out of you. And that's not the guitar solo in that, but the delivery of the lyrics. Like, this guy had something to say about problems, and he was just in a character almost.
Well, I'm glad you bring that up, because that's kind of what I was trying to talk about earlier when I said I can't quite put it into words. But Fish, and maybe this is just obvious, but he comes across more as an actor almost than he does as a singer, because he tells the story.
He tells the story.
His lyrics are just so vivid.
But that's more Roger Waters. And so that's another interesting comparison, because Roger Waters was that he didn't have a great voice, but he would use that in The Wall and other songs, and almost a lyrical speaking voice, but it was still singing. Mm-hmm. And then Gilmour would come in with the melodic vocals, and that it balanced out really well. And so, when he on the Wall, when he is really animated, and with the judge and Your Honor, all that stuff, that's what it reminded me of. It's like a maniacal character in there.
And I don't mean to keep comparing this band to other bands that we like, but it proves the point to me, because we're talking about bands that everybody knows. I mean, come on, it's Pink Floyd. We're comparing them to Genesis. I mean, huge, right? Yet here's a band that we have on an episode called They Should Have Been Huge. And not saying that they weren't big in the UK, but here they weren't. And I started to go down the path of, well, they were just too British. Yeah. Right? They were just too British for dumb Americans to get what they're doing. But the other two bands we just talked about are also too British almost.
And at the exact same time. 82, I mean, The Wall was 80, and I think the movie was
79, right?
79, and then the movie was 80. And so coming on the coattails of their biggest album.
Every stoner, every high school kid in America saw The Wall.
Yeah, by then, exactly.
Yeah, so I just, I don't mean to compare them to all these bands because they are their own thing. They're their own entity. Obviously, they're still going and I absolutely love them. But it's just interesting to me that we can compare them with these bands that are pretty much household names.
Right.
But for whatever reason, this didn't work here. So let's talk about how they continue in the UK, though, because if you're listening to this and you're in the UK, you're going, yeah, this band's big.
Yada, yada, yada.
Yada, yada, yada. I don't need to hear the same singles I hear on the radio. Well, whatever.
We're not in the UK.
We're not in the UK, so wish I was sometimes.
You got to slow down and keep up with us dumb Americans.
So let's talk about the next album. The second album is called Fugazi, which happens to be a pretty amazing punk band that I like, but
different show.
Different. This is the album Fugazi by Marillion. It came out in 1984. So 1 year later, they put out the second album, and they have a little bit of turmoil because Fish basically fires the drummer who also started the band. and they got to find a drummer before they can finish this recording. So
You're supposed to wait till after the recording.
Yeah. So I think they had already started this thing, and they have to get somebody in to patch it up and keep the time a little better apparently than the original guy did. And they get the most amazing drummer named Ian Mosley, who obviously he's good because he's still in the band today. Mm-hmm. So this was when they established that from a musician standpoint, all the guys are now in Marillion on the second album that are still in the band today, which is pretty amazing. You change out the singer in 1989, and then the Marillion is the same from 89 to now. But here they are with Fish, with the core band that would continue on throughout, I'm assuming, the rest of their career. So all the reviews on this album, again, it's so weird reading older reviews because it's such a point in time in reference to what's going on at that time.
The bitch about Reagan, I'm sure.
No, well, I mean, it's just what they're comparing it to and what my ears hear in 2021. But, a lot of the reviews say they strayed away from the prog. It was more hard rock. This isn't going to be as loved by the diehards. And
oh, bye.
And then I listened to it and I'm like, I'm not really hearing that. I guess it's got a little more anger to it. They had talked about the first album being dark. This one seems a little more angry. So this could be that the lyrics that Fish was writing for this, he needed to act that way because, again, I think we've established now he's an actor. Mm-hmm. He's a thespian. All of that being said, and all these reviews about how this was a stinker compared to the first one, this was number 5 in the UK. It was on the charts for 20 weeks, so not quite as long as the first album. It went gold instead of platinum. So, oh my God, they're falling. And again in the US, nothing. Didn't know about this. 2 singles that were top 30 hits. One's called Punch and Judy. It was number 29 in the UK, and Assassing was number 22 in the UK. That's the song we're going to play, Assassing. It's amazing. Let's talk about the artwork. The artwork, again, by Mark Wilkinson, is probably the best Mark Wilkinson art of any of the covers that he did. I would highly recommend you go check it out. It actually won several awards just on the art alone. And this is so 80s, so surrealistic. It's basically a disturbing image of the Jester on a bed overdosing. Like with his clothes half off, and he has like a Walkman. So it's so 80s because
all the cliche stuff.
All of the stuff in his room is so like modern art 80s, and it's kind of surrealistic. So things are dripping.
So it's not Nikki Sixx in a hotel room on a hotel room floor or something like that.
No, this is more like what I would envision, like somebody's apartment in Manhattan who was trying to be
pop
cool.
artist. Yeah.
So just go check out the album cover for Fugazi. Really, really cool. It's all of their artwork is gatefold. I'm an art guy, so I'm kind of dorking out on this, but these covers are just so awesome. If you like Iron Maiden and you like those types of covers that kind of tell a story, and you can almost, I used to spend hours just looking at the artwork while listening to the music.
While sitting in a beanbag.
Yep. Exactly.
I know the picture.
This is basically the same kind of deal here with Marillion.
Headphones, beanbag, and an album cover. There you go. There's your Thursday night right there.
Well, actually, that usually is my Thursday night
still. But this time it's locking. No, you're still down in the basement, locking yourself in your basement. Yeah,
right.
Nothing's changed.
Not much has changed with me. I'm perpetually 13.
Kevin, are you down there?
No, my mom was.
Stomping on the floor.
She'd stomp on the floor
3 times, come upstairs. Twice meant you got 10 minutes before you had to go to bed or something. You had a system.
Exactly. So with that, I give you 1984's Assassing.
All right, once and for all, were they saying assassins or assassing?
Both.
Oh, son of a bitch. Okay, because I was just like, what?
Assassins, Assassing.
Assessing.
No, Assassing.
S-A?
It's A-S-S-A-S-S-I-N-G.
Like to sass somebody to talk back, but you're assassing.
Assassing.
Like, I'm going to give you a good sassing. That's assassing.
I don't know. I think it's
Is that an
I think
English
it's
thing?
an English play on words is what it is.
Okay, because that was throwing me off. The assassins or assassing. Those two very different things. I don't mind a good sassing, but assassins, no. We need to keep them out of my house. It was fascinating to hear. First of all, that was the most amazing 1980s audio time capsule of every 80s cliche, musical cliche, except for like Yngwie Malmsteen guitar solo. That was the only thing missing, but it was like Bruce Dickinson singing for the Eurythmics. It was that 80s pop sensibility, but then
I'm going to throw another one at you, but go ahead.
Okay, but that was what I was getting at. Was first of all, like I said, going back and forth between Bruce Dickinson and Peter Gabriel and his delivery. The same guy in the same song had very different sounds and just able to accent certain things with his voice certain ways to affect the feeling of the song. But all of those 80s stuff going on in there, it's amazing. Just like somebody had to put a medley together, and that this is it. We recorded this so that future generations can understand.
The only thing it didn't have was the orchestra hit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so that's fascinating. Play that for the millennials and go, oh, yeah, I lived through this.
They're like, oh, this is cool now.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. The mommy jeans are cool now.
So I think what you're talking about is all the layers and all the texture.
Layers.
Right?
And just the keyboard sound was very 80s, the guitar sound, just all that.
So here's the first time that I feel like this band, and I said it last time on our Marillion episode, is that this band is like the British Rush to me. And this is the first time that they have a sound
that synth at the beginning
really has that 80s Rush vibe to it. And
totally.
I just realized as we were listening to it just now why it hits me that way. It's not just the textures and how the songs composed. It's because now they have Ian Mosley as their drummer. So now you have a really, really competent drummer who's laying down this amazing rhythm track that now the musicians around him can build upon.
And maybe Fish was right. Maybe he wasn't a great drummer.
Listening to it, in sequence like we are, it definitely comes across as a big step forward in the drum department.
He knew what he's talking about. It
Ian
was
Mosley
just a personal thing.
He's one of my favorite drummers. I love Ian Mosley. His approach to drums. It's he's just like Steve Rothery. It's like you sprinkle in these moments of just amazing playing with restraint and playing for the song.
And I was thinking of Rush, but I thought it was more the synth sound. But
I think it's the combination.
If I went back and listened to it now, I bet you're right. The drums were big.
Yeah, they're big, and they're something better than just a typical drummer.
4/4 beat.
Yeah. So I here's another album where Fish is. He's a character actor, and he's acting in every song, and here he is in Assassing being, this other character. His vocals kind of change. He does that sort of a cappella kind of, that high register. What is that called?
Falsetto.
That's what I'm going for. He has that falsetto. That is very Peter Gabriel in a way. Very cool. Let's move on to the peak of their popularity.
Don't pop your peaks.
Yes. We were going to the next year, 1985, so... Man, they're just hitting it every year.
What a good year that was.
Firing.
That was a great year.
Yeah. Why is that such a great year for you?
My first year of high school, and I got to meet senior women.
Senior girls.
I'm hanging out with senior women now, but they're not near as fun as when you're in high school.
It's different now when you talk about
seniors.
seniors.
Very different. They don't stay out very late anymore.
Oh, yeah. So the stars also aligned for this band in 1985, much as it did you as a young man. This 1985 was their most successful year, most successful album that they've ever had, and it finally hit on the other side of the pond. Yes, this is when they actually had something that broke in the U.S., and the song that broke was a song called Kaylee, which I mentioned before, which is primarily in between a ballad and a kind of pop
up-tempo ballad.
Up-tempo kind of thing. So really great song. It was UK top 5. I'm sorry, it was number 2. So it was in the top 5, but it was number 2. And then they had another song that was also in the top 5. In the US, Kaylee only got to number 74, but this is the first time this band has ever broken in the States, and probably the last. But this was the one that most people, if you've heard of Marillion, this is the time frame when you heard of them, and you may have seen a video for Kaylee, and this is probably the album cover that you might have seen in the logo logo and everything that you might know, this is the one. The album itself was number 1 in the UK, 41 weeks on the chart. The name of the album is Misplaced Childhood, and it's sort of based on Fish's childhood. He was inspired by some incident when he was under the influence of acid.
Oh, wouldn't know that.
And that's how he wrote this album.
Only crazy people do that.
So, it's a real thing. It does work. All of those acid rock guys, they were right.
Yeah.
You can get great albums. You got a number 1 album out of this.
Yeah, and what do? I get lost in the woods.
You got lost in the woods.
Well, not even lost, in the middle of an open field.
Did you write an opus?
No,
though?
I got a sculpture.
Did you scrawl something on a piece of rock that you found?
No, there's just grass, and it was dark. I had nothing to write with, not even a flashlight, and I didn't know where to go, and it was the sad 30 minutes of me standing in the middle of a field, worrying about how I was going to get back to camp, but also going, oh, wow, look at the stars. That's really pretty. Oh, wait a minute, I'm lost. Damn it.
Well, in Fish's acid trip, he was in Padres Bay when he felt a child standing behind him on the stairs, and he was dressed as a soldier, and as soon as he turned his head, the corner of his eye, he disappeared. And so he figured that was his muse, or maybe it was just the acid, but it propelled him to write this entire album, and this is the first time that he is able to he's tried to convince his band for 2 albums, can we please do a concept album? And they'd said no.
Because usually,
finally,
other than Pink Floyd, it's pretty much the kiss of death for every other band out there, but...
Kiss. Yeah, totally. So
that wasn't by mistake. That wasn't by mistake.
The Elder. So he finally convinces them, and he takes this acid trip all the way to a full concept album. And oh, by the way, it's number 1 in the UK.
That's getting your money's worth. Whatever you paid for that hit, that was worth it right there.
This album is held in such high regard by folks in the know. So Classic Rock ranked this as the 4th greatest concept album of all time. That's pretty amazing. The cover for this one's interesting because it does not have the Jester on the front. The Jester's on the back cover. Because, like I said, they always did the gate.
Got demoted.
They always did the gatefold. It has this kid on the front, which is
he's part of the story.
So he's in the marching band, military type red coat.
Yeah.
And he's holding a drum. And it happened to be the next door neighbor of Mark Wilkinson. He used him kind of as his model.
Come over here a second.
So this 10-year-old kid is actually in the first video they did.
Oh, yeah?
Because he was next door to the artist anyway. So he's like, well, he's the guy that's on the cover. We'll use him in the video. So he's actually in the video. I wonder what he looks like now. But that's really cool to look at yourself as at age 10 in a video.
Well, at least it wasn't the B girl in the
True. Well, that's still pretty cool too.
Yeah. But what is she now? Like, did she peak at 8 years old, or however old she was when? Has she done anything with her life since then?
I'm sure she's had a fine life. Who cares? It's just cool that you were in a rock video. At
58 years old now at this point.
So I actually have an affinity for this album as well. This is the second Fish album that I bought. The first one was a used CD. I got the live album. This was the first proper full-length album that I bought, and I bought a used cassette at my favorite place at the time when I was in college called Manifest Music. I've talked about it a lot, but I bought it in the early to mid 90s, and this is probably my second favorite Marillion album. Last time I mentioned that Brave is my number 1. Mm-hmm. This is really close to number 2. I can't decide between Afraid of Sunlight and this one, but super strong album, really great. There's a reason that it did so well. And the other thing that's really cool when I was researching this album is they played to their biggest audience ever on this tour when they were the special guest to Queen.
Oh, damn.
They played a festival in Germany to a crowd of 150,000 people.
Whoa.
Here's another. So that's cool. There's your Queen moment. That's Queen style right there. 150,000 people, right, in an outdoor show. Here's the other thing that they have in common with Queen, which they're kicking themselves for now. They were offered, Marillion were offered the Highlander soundtrack. They turned it down to work on their next album, or because of a tour or something like that. They turned it down. Well, Queen picked it up, right? And Queen had a whole bunch of hits with the content from that album that supports the Highlander soundtrack.
They did better with that than, what was the Flash...
Oh, Flash Gordon.
Yeah. It was a little bit more of a memorable album than Flash Gordon.
Queen released an album called A Kind of Magic, right? And it's basically all the songs that are on the Highlander. I don't know that they released a Highlander soundtrack, but all of those songs are
on that album.
On that in that movie. And for the U.S., the U.S. had kind of stopped listening to Queen after Another One Bites the Dust. For whatever reason, it was like Queen was no more until Highlander came out, and it was such a big kind of cult classic. It wasn't a huge movie, but it was kind of a cult classic, and large rentals and all that. So it kind of helped propel Queen again in the U.S.
Well, then they had another kind of tapering off until the Wembley Stadium show. That kind of brought them back again. They had many rebirths throughout their career.
Yeah, well, that Wembley Stadium show was touring for a kind of magic, which is the Highlander content. So, what could have happened to Marillion had they done Highlander is, they could have gotten more success in the U.S. than they did.
Wow.
So,
but would they have written the same songs, though? I mean...
Yeah, who knows?
They're not Queen.
Who knows?
So Queen just was in the right moment, the right time.
The interesting thing with Marillion is Fish is actually Scottish, and the main character in Highlander is based in the Highlands.
Yeah.
He's Scottish, so I'm sure it would have been
I've never
a little more...
seen it. I
You've
have to
never seen
admit.
Highlander?
No,
Wow.
I'm not proud of that. It's not on purpose. It just happened.
It's of its time. It's got Sean Connery in it. It's got to be good,
And
right?
you know what? Right there. Sold. Anything with Sean Connery.
Another Scot.
Yes. I mean, I'm half Scot, so good God, I should
great.
see that. I should know my heritage.
It's great. It's kind of cheesy but cool. It's very 80s, but that's what makes it so great. So I'm going to play a song again. It's another single, but this is the third single. These are not the ones that actually broke bigger. So this is a song that has an interesting name that I never really understood what it meant. I thought it was some made up like Tolkien kind of thing. It's called Heart of Lothian. And I thought, oh, that sounds very fantasy.
Lord of the Rings
kind of stuff. No, it's actually Fish is from Midlothian, Scotland. So I didn't realize. It's just me being dumb.
And it's probably pronounced Middle-earthen.
Probably. Well, let's just listen to it. Here it is, Heart of Lothian.
But you're feeling like a wino in a parking lot. How did I get in here anyway? Do we really need a playback of the show? 'Cause the white boy wants to head for the watering hole, let's go.
And so that definitely gave me vibes of the Final Cut, having a theme to it, just knowing that that's probably going to, taper into another song that just comes right at you. So as they drift off,
Yep.
and your thoughts drift, and then the next song that came on that album, I'm sure was just kicked you right in the nuts.
And even when it almost starts, you knew something was ahead of it.
Yeah. There is the tail end of something else, and then it morphed into that song. So.
I'm assuming the single version probably has some sort of fade in or something that makes it not sound so chopped.
Yeah.
But I played directly from the album.
One of the huge downsides to digital music is when you hear songs off of albums, they're cut off. Where, on the album, it totally drifts into the next song. There's no stop or start. And Pink Floyd songs are horrible about that when they play them on satellite radio and it's a computer starting and stopping it, then it just stops abruptly. And on the radio, the DJ would fade it out or something like that, or, blend another song with it. So that's the horrors of modern technology.
So I don't know if you were listening or if you heard it, but forever I thought he was saying white boys.
I heard that
white
too.
boys. And I was like, that doesn't sound
that did
right.
not age well.
He's not saying white.
Wild boys.
Wide.
Oh, wide, like fat.
Yeah. I don't know. Again, this is probably the British
large, girthy
British speak coming out
boys.
that I don't understand.
No, I thought I say okay. So I thought white boys at first. I'm like, okay, that's not right. But then I was like, wild boys.
Wide boys.
Okay, that was Duran Duran.
Wide boys born with hearts of Lothian.
Just okay.
Cool.
They were known for their
cool.
girthy boys. Wide loads.
But again, I got just that sort of kind of rushy, Floydy vibe in this.
Absolutely. My mind was
Genesis
drifting.
vibe in this.
It just opens up your mind to wander.
Again, 3 bands I just mentioned that are
massive.
Everybody knows them.
Not just huge, massive.
Yeah, massive groups that everybody knows, and yet
here
we are talking about Marillion.
Blends all of them in a good way.
Yeah, and still has their own thing.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to make it sound
they're not
like
a cover band.
I don't want to make it sound like I think they're ripping off these other bands. No. It's not. They just have that vibe. Mm-hmm. They have that same grandiose kind of presence.
And there weren't a lot of bands that even came close to pulling that off. No. I know people wanted to.
A lot that wanted to, yeah.
But they actually did their own thing in a way that was respectful to all these other bands we talked about.
They're on the level. So let's move into 87. So here's the first time that Marillion's had a bit of a break. So they have 3 punches right in a row with their albums, and then they have a year off. And they didn't really have a year off. They toured the hell out of that album because it was a #1 album. So, and because
that's when you make your money.
They got popularity in the States. So they went over and toured States and did, all of that stuff to promote that album as much as they could. And then they sort of got pushed into, we need to quickly get album number 4 out. You've been on the road. Okay, get back in the studio. And Fish was this is his last album. He was kind of like, I kind of had enough of this push. This isn't really the way that I want to work. And so this album goes darker from a concept. It is a concept album, and it's about the exploration of excess. So it's about alcoholism. It's really about Fish. It's about life on the road and trying to deal with life while you're, at the hand of somebody else. So it's an interesting album. It's called Clutching at Straws. And when I first purchased this again in the 90s, this was, of all the Fish albums, this is one I like the least. And it's interesting how time changes your opinions of albums. The more you listen to it, or maybe the more you mature and you get into the content of it a little bit more. Now it's one of my favorite albums. and it's just different from where they were going, and it's just darker, but it was still huge. So they came off a number one in the UK with their last album. Now they have a number two album here in 1987. If you think about 1987, what's going on is new wave has kind of transitioned to the flavor now is hair metal and that sort of thing, and Marillion's not really that, but they do have some nice crunchy guitars here and there, and they've got the neon colors, and so I don't know if that played into their continuing to do well or not, but when you're competing with in 1987 with Def Leppard Hysteria, same time that came out, even in the UK or in the US, that's pretty amazing. If we think about the Whitesnake album, Def Leppard Hysteria, God, what else was there? All the Motley Crue stuff.
Van Halen.
Van Halen, yeah. 5150 was 86. Yeah, so 0812 was 88, I believe.
So right in that, I was still listening to 5150.
But all that stuff was, selling multiple, multi-platinum success. So to have a number two album in the UK still is pretty amazing for a neo-prog band. Spent 15 weeks on the charts, so less time in the charts than some of the previous releases, but still amazing. 3 UK top 40 singles, so Incommunicado, Sugar Mice, and Warm Wet Circles, all great songs. Not going to play a single this time. I'm going to play a deeper cut. And this album actually, like I said, it's grown on me. This is actually a favorite among most diehards. This is one of their favorite albums. So Fish says that he was, not happy, I guess, with where he was and with the band at the time. This is his last album. It's interesting because Mark Wilkinson, so the guy who's done all the artwork to this point, he's also not happy. So it's like they're symbiotic or something. So he felt rushed to do the artwork. He does not like this artwork, and I agree, it's not nearly as good as some of the other ones that he did, and it really plays down the whole Jester thing that he started. But he says he was rushed and that Fish was driving the concepts, but I guess Fish being unhappy and changing things last minute leads to an unhappy album cover from the artist as well. So interesting how their two careers kind of went together in Marillion. Just I've never heard of that before. So,
well, there was the artist group called Hypnosis with a G that did a lot of the artwork for Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
And so it dovetails with that, where their career was made by Pink Floyd, and I'm sure they did other things too, but that's all you hear about.
They did some Yes covers as well, Yes? And then Yes had Roger Dean. So there are a lot of these. Now that you bring that up, there are some of these, and in prog world,
right?
Even because Yes had Roger Dean. You're right. Hypnosis was with Floyd and a few others.
But you do an art exhibit with just not just the album art, but the concert poster, all the other things they designed.
All the stuff, even the stage props. I think a lot of those guys, those artists designed those as
How
well.
come they don't have a tour like that? I mean, they had the Pink Floyd Laser Light Show touring for a bazillion years to this day. I would love to see just a gallery of their art.
Yeah, I would. I'm an art nerd, so yeah, man, I would love that. But anyway, I'm going to play an album off of this. An album.
Okay. Here we go.
I'm not going to play an album.
Roll it up.
I'm going to play a song off of this album that, again, is a deep cut, and this one's called White Russian. This is from 1987.
Where do we answers. I close my mind, I shut it out, but you know it's getting harder to come down, to reason out, to come to terms with what it's all about. I'm uptight, can't sleep at night, I can't pretend everything's alright. My heart use my sanity, it seems that there's an in me. Let's stand up and fight. I know we are six, but we're rising. The synagogues, Uzis on a street corner. The heralds of the Holocaust, Uzis on a street corner. The sirens never louder than now. How quickly we forgot our vows. This resurrection we can't allow. Uzis on a street corner. Where do we go from here? Where do we go? We buy fresh bagels from the corner store. We swatch the Gazza splat from aerosols. We sit in the bar sipping iced white Russian, trying to score, but nobody's pushing. And everyone looks at everyone's faces, searching for signs and praying for traces of a conscience in residence. Are we sitting on a barbed wire fence, racing the clouds home? Racing the clouds home. We place our faith in human rights, and the paper walls tie the red tape tight. I know that I would rather be out at this conspiracy in the gulags and internment camps, frozen faces and nameless scraps. I know that they would rather be standing here beside me, racing the clouds home, racing the clouds home. You can shut your eyes, you can hide it away, it's gonna come back another day. Racing the clouds home, are we racing the clouds home? Racing the clouds home.
Going back one more time for comparison's sake, I think I heard my first Pink Floyd song around 1983 or 4. Thought it was weird, didn't know much about Pink Floyd. But then 1987, when this album came out, was the first time I had listened to a Pink Floyd song, purposely put in a cassette tape, laying on the floor of an airport in, I think, Houston on my way to Mexico, listened to The Wall, and got me thinking about if I had heard this song, this album, I probably would have liked it, because at that time, listening to The Wall, I'm just like, oh my God, this is amazing. Couldn't get enough of it. And this song had a lot of the same elements where it had the passion. It wasn't as quirky as some of their other songs. It had that big guitar solo that always need more of that. That he always leaves me wanting just a little bit more. So it's fascinating to think about all these years later what 17-year-old me would have thought of that at that time. And if I had heard anything like that, I can't remember.
Well, that's also the year from Pink Floyd that we got Momentary Lapse of Reason, 1987.
And that's actually, you know what? That's why I'd borrowed The Wall from somebody else. I think I'd heard Learning to Fly on the radio, saw the video on MTV, and that's, I think, what hooked me. And then I was able to actually, I saw they had that cassette. I'm like, what is that? And I was hooked. I mean, just gangbusters after that. Couldn't get enough. But once again, this Marillion song is right there in that wheelhouse.
I agree.
That I probably would have liked that.
Had I heard this at the same time I heard Momentary Lapse of Reason, I probably would have preferred this, to be honest.
Yeah.
That album has not, Momentary I'm talking about, that album has not aged as well with me as the one that came after it, Division Bell. Love that album. But Momentary, not so much. But this album has aged really well with me. If you read the lyrics to the song you just heard, it reads like a damn novel. I mean, the guy is just a brilliant storyteller and writer. And why I don't know all the references he's making. He makes me feel dumb sometimes. But it's just a great story and so vivid, and you can see what he's singing about when he's singing it. So he's a storyteller, an actor. He's very unique. But I think musically, kind of what you're alluding to is this is pointing to where Marillion is going to transition.
You're absolutely right. It's more that melodic, it's still proggy, but not the jarring proggy.
They're starting to take that kind of Floyd way of bringing you into a cinematic experience, kind of symphonic rock in a way that they hadn't done until this album. So very interesting. Now, 1987, Fish decides that's the last album I'm going to do. He tours, and I think by it's either late 88 or early 89, he departs the band. And from everything that I read, it was kind of a deal where he was pushing back on their manager. So it kind of goes back to the business side of things. He was pushing back on the demands that were being made on the band and their compensation and their voice. He felt like wasn't being heard and that they weren't being compensated and that they were being pushed to make somebody else a lot of money.
Yep.
And
how common is that?
And he kind of said to the band, look, it's either me or him. And the band chose the manager.
Oof.
So Fish said, all right, we'll see you. And they were on bad terms for a while. Fish goes out and does solo albums very similar to Peter Gabriel, where he just kind of, he's out there. He's in Fish world. He can do what he wants to do outside of Marillion. He doesn't have even though that band was not very constrained, there were constraints upon what he could do in that band. So his solo material is kind of out there, very similar to Peter Gabriel. So, you keep going back to the similarities between him and Gabriel, and interesting. So go check out his albums, his solo stuff. He actually put out his last solo album last year. He officially retired. I don't know if it was health reasons or what, but he made a big statement. This is it. His last album is brilliant. Go listen to it. It's amazing. Like Gabriel, it never sounds the same.
Yeah.
So every album something's different, but always has that Fish, that storytelling uniqueness to it. And with Fish, with his departure, so did Mark Wilkinson depart. And he goes on to do other artists, but he also does all the Fish album covers. So he goes with Fish. These guys are just,
they had a relationship,
joined at the hip. So now they have to get a new member and have to figure out where Marillion's going. But in between then, the record company goes, sounds like a good time to put out a live album.
Oh, I was going to say greatest hits. So live,
they did thing. That too.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of times they fill in the void with live album and greatest hits. And the reason I'm going to play from this live album, other than it being really awesome, this is the first Fish recording that I ever bought. I bought a used copy of their live album that came out in 88 called The Thieving Magpie, Gazza, Ladra, which I believe means The Thieving Magpie. So basically the album is called The Thieving Magpie, The Thieving Magpie.
In another language.
So I'm going to play this song, and this is Freaks.
All the best freaks are here. All the best freaks are here. Did you ever meet a lady screaming angst potential? Did you ever dream of romance no matter how experimental? Did you ever feel a stranger drifting back into your hometown? Did you think you were buying safety when you bought that piece of ground? She said all the best freaks are here. All the best freaks are here, please. let's go. Did you ever wake up sweating in the middle of the night? I searched the darkness and you're scrambling for the light. Did you ever walk down the street, hear footsteps following you? But don't worry, my son, you've got the spook squad looking after you. I said all the best freaks are here, all the best freaks are here. Please stop staring at me. So I said all the best freaks are here, all the best freaks are here. Please stop staring at me. Hey. Airport terminal, patiently waiting on the last call. Feel the eyes on the back of the head. Stop the order, get out of the picture, go out the last laugh. Feel the whispers as your head on the plane. Stop staring at me. Now the linen sheets seem so very far away. You save your pennies and you buy another day. But after all, it's only hide and seek, just another day. There's so much fun to be had when you're leaving with a name. All the best freaks are here, all the best freaks are here. Please stop staring at me. So I said all the best freaks are here, all the best freaks are here. Please stop staring at me. So I said all the best freaks are here, all the best freaks are here. Please stop staring at me. Sing. So I said all the best freaks are here, all the best freaks are here. Please stop staring at me. Stop staring at me. Stop staring at me. Stop staring at me. Come on. Stop staring at me. Stop staring at me.
If you're one of my friends and you're listening to this podcast, you know, always remember all the best freaks are here. All the best freaks are here in my house on a weekly basis. Gotta love it. And stop staring at me. No, that's not the problem. Nobody pays attention to me when I'm with my friends because I'm the most boring looking person in the room usually. So
You're always the star.
I
Come
really
on.
have to ramp it up with some leopard print pants or something like that just so I fit in.
Yeah, even when you're around what you call freaks, you're always the star. Somehow you're always still the front man, ever the front man.
Ever the front man. It never ends.
You know, for me, again, this was the second album that I ever bought by Marillion and the first that I ever heard Fish, and immediately fan. Like,
Yeah, I could
was
see
like,
that.
I want to go to this show.
God, it's amazing. Live albums always hook me in. If it's good, there's obviously going to be some live albums that are boring as hell, but for the most part, if it's good on that live album, I am hooked on that band.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about it in the last episode of Marillion, but they are known for being an amazing live band. That's, you know, another similarity again to Rush is they've built their career on playing live. It's put the albums out, put all you can into it, but then the live show is the other half.
Yeah, they don't go play the album.
Yeah.
They play their own show to support that album, but it's a different feeling, a different experience. You're not listening to the album exactly as it was recorded.
Yeah, you listen to Freaks on the album, it doesn't sound like that.
Yeah.
It's just a different energy.
Right.
You know,
and that's where it's a sign of a good band.
Exactly. Yeah. All right. So Fish is gone. What are we going to do? Oh, let's put out
Go
some
fishing.
stuff. And we're going fishing for a new singer. And we talked about that in the last episode, and they did that. They got a guy named Steve Hogarth, who was the former keyboardist and sometime vocalist for a band called the Europeans, which were a new wave band, moderate, kind of successful, but not outside the UK. Yeah. And so he's kind of, in a way, he's kind of a nobody to Marillion
overshadowed
world,
by Europe,
but kind of a nobody to Marillion world. And, being a new wave musician and a keyboardist, I'm sure was intriguing because not only did he play keyboards, but he could do percussion, he could play guitar, he's kind of a jack of all trades, and he has his own very unique style of singing, which we heard in the last episode. And he is the member, that would take them to where they are today in 2021. So he is more so Marillion than even Fish because he's been there the longest and has a lot more albums under his belt than Fish. But his start was a little rocky, and we talked about that. So they're coming off of success. They're coming off of a very, very strong personality and storyteller and a frontman. And while Steve Hogarth, H, is a great songwriter and a great performer, he's not the same type of performer as Fish. They're two different types of guys. He's more of he's a member of the band.
Right.
With Fish, it was like, it's Fish and Marillion.
Yeah, he was the entity that people came to see along with the supporting cast.
Yeah, even though they were a band, but Fish was up front, and he was, just a kind of big guy, kind of boisterous, and that's not who Steve Hogarth is. And, coming off of the time, so he basically comes onto the scene in 1989. They have worked on an album with Fish. Fish decides to leave. All of the melodies and every lyric that he had written for this album, he basically takes with him. So Fish does not allow them to use his lyrics, and I get it.
Yeah.
It's Fish lyrics, and somebody else can't sing that. I don't know if they kept some of the melodies and
here we go with one more comparison to Pink Floyd, where the major driving force has a split up with the band and goes, no, you can't sing my songs, and they go, oh yeah. So Pink Floyd has a legal battle, and they end up singing a song. So yeah, this guy Fish wrote the song. It was his right to probably go, no.
And Fish actually takes those lyrics, and his first two albums have those lyrics in them, but different music. So the band obviously kept their music. They were the writers of the music. Not only do you have to be the new singer, but now you have to fill a space in a song that this band has already worked on with the previous singer. But you can't use his lyrics.
Watermelon, 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 watermelon.
How are you going to make it fit?
Going to the grocery store, going to get some beer.
Yeah, exactly. So, hats off to H, man.
It's tough to walk into that situation.
He gave this band a number 7 in the UK, and he gave them 3 singles on this album. So they continued their success. They're still on EMI.
Yeah.
He's come into this band and given it his all, and it's a good album. But like I said last time, his first 2 albums are very much more on the commercial side of their music and more poppy. And honestly, that's where he was coming from.
Yeah.
That's what he was doing. So I don't know if he brought that to them or if it was just the time or management or whatever, but that's kind of what we got. And I'm actually going to play one of the singles because I absolutely love the song. It's called Easter. And the name of the album that came out in 1989 is Season's End. And before I go into it, I do want to talk about the cover art because we've been talking about the cover that Mark Wilkinson did on all the other albums. Now Mark is gone. So what is Marillion going to do from a cover art standpoint? This is kind of interesting. It's called Season's End. Okay, so you could read into that. That's the end of the Fish era, right? And even with the cover art, they break it up into 4 squares, and they symbolize the elements, so earth, air, water, fire. And at the same time, they include references in each of the tiles to their previous albums. And in I think the last tile, they have just a little flash of the Jester's hat that's either in fire or I can't remember which tile it's in, but it's basically, you can tell it's going away.
Gone.
So it's them.
See ya.
It's them saying goodbye in the album cover.
It's like when they killed off Chef on South Park.
Exactly.
They killed him off like 15 different ways. It's like, no, we're going to make damn sure he's not coming back.
But if you think about that, that's kind of like, damn. Yeah. I mean, that's kind of cold. We're going to
rock and roll.
We're going to call it Season's End, and we're going to reference getting rid of the guy that was here before. But
that's why it's such a beautiful thing when you can have that catharsis. You can just get it out there creatively and not just sit and stew about something. No, let's make art about these feelings we were feeling. And that's where it comes into that, yes, this is why we do this. Even when it's that way, it's a cold F you on the way out, but at the same time, you're a musician, you're an artist, this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, eventually Fish and the band would come back on good
but
terms.
still,
With age, that happens.
We had the same thing in our band, and it just, but like I said, in that time and place, run with it. That's what you're feeling, write about it.
So I'm surprised we didn't get an angry album. No, it's kind of poppy. but
I hate you, asshole.
But it definitely has some melancholy because, now you've got H and you can bring in that extra piano or that extra.
It's going to have more.
It's got more of that Floyd kind of mellow kind of vibe as well. So, and the song I'm going to play is actually kind of a mellow song called Easter. The coda on this song, fantastic. I mean, such a live
coda.
Yeah.
Look at you throwing out the music theory references. Damn. You wait till the last part of the podcast to go sideways on me like that.
Yeah, well, So just listen for it. It's just amazing. So I'm going to play Easter.
The ghost of the mist was on the field, the grey and the green together. The noise of a distant farm machine out of the first light came. A tattered necklace of pageant trees on the southern side of the hill. The trays were the border runs between where Mary the newsboy fell. Easter,
You okay?
It was beautiful, man.
I'm sorry. That's just ear candy.
God. And you know what? Maybe we've been talking about the 80s too much. That is make-out music. Good God almighty. Because it just goes. It just goes. There's no interruptions. Nothing to go, oh, you need to go put another song on.
See what I'm saying at the end, though? It's just like, you could see, that is like Queen live type material. I mean, can you imagine the crowd singing that with him live? And
all the lighters.
Huge setting?
All the lighters.
Man.
Before there were cell phones, just lighters. Actual burn your thumb off lighters from holding it so long. It was bittersweet. It was just, I mean, it was a perfect end to, all of their albums before that had been one long concept album, that song would have been the ending. Mm-hmm. Even though it was a different singer, different album, it was a beginning, but that song right there would have been the perfect ending to all of the albums put together back to back.
And it's the perfect song to put on an album called Seasons End.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
just
like,
worked perfectly.
Okay. We're going into new territory after this.
But you've got to lay the gauntlet down before you go into the new territory. You've got to say goodbye, have that closure. Look at me using big words.
Wow.
Closure.
Nice.
Yeah. So, God, and that's what I love. That's what I miss about music, writing music, was those moments where you went through something and you put it on paper, wrote some music to it, and it works. And you're just like, yes, that's it. And it's the best therapy. You could
when it
sit
hits
in front of
and you feel it,
God,
it's amazing. There's nothing like it.
If you've never written a song, you've got to understand that you pour your heart out into something.
It's any art, really, right?
Well, I'm just saying,
any
specifically
kind of
music
Yeah.
that I'm speaking of now. It doesn't happen as much making sculptures for me. I have had a few cathartic moments making sculptures. I made one that was a trumpet. Somebody in my neighborhood actually commissioned me to build a metal trumpet from scratch last year. And as I was making it, I had that moment of thinking about my father, who is an amazing trumpet player. And I got some of my skills from him. But you have that moment while you're making it. But when you're specifically writing a song about an event that happened in your life. We had a couple of those on. I wrote it about
you were a storyteller.
Yeah, I love telling the story.
That.
Like my songs were not abstract; they were liminal, super liminal.
Yeah.
I was telling you exactly what I was thinking. Most of it was just stupid stuff, but still, when you were able to express certain emotions with music from start to end and have a little middle section, it just works. God, that was amazing. I had one song that for the first 8-9 times that we did that on stage, I would get emotional because it was just that cathartic for me singing that. And I made the girl that I wrote it about, Janae, she was at one of our first shows that we sang that song at. She's out in the audience crying. She knew it was about her, even though it didn't say her name. And those are the moments you live for as an artist, to get that out there and make that connection with the audience. So I can only imagine how great that was for them to just have that moment and then start off anew.
And you could just feel that, even though hopefully if you guys are listening to this, hopefully you made it through that song, because I know it's not hard rock, it's not rock and punk and metal as we think about it, but that is such a powerful song. And if you get to that lead that seems to go on for about a minute and a half, a guitar lead that goes on for a minute
finally
and a half.
gave me enough to be satisfied. The rest of the songs, I'm like, keep going, keep
Steve
going.
Rothery, man, if he's just now hitting your radar, you're going to want to dig in, because the dude can play. He's amazing. And that song, I mean, you take a song that starts off as a ballad, as a traditional 80s ballad, and then just turns into this, kind of like you said, kind of this cathartic, emotional drain of a song that has this amazing Queen-like outro coda, if you will.
Coda? Hey, once you hit it right, just keep nailing it.
Yeah, I love the Fish era. But I'm an H guy. I mean, I totally appreciate everything that Fish did with that band, and it was definitely a different band with him. And we talked about it last time, and you've never heard it, right? This is the first time for you
for H.
With
for Fish. No, I'd never heard with Fish before.
So totally different band.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? It was very Jethro Tull, very Genesis, early Genesis, just like we all talked about. That's just, it wasn't something that I would gravitate towards until towards the end. There was a few that the 87 era, I probably would have gotten into.
Where they started to kind of make that
mellowed
turn.
a little bit. Yeah,
I of course dig all of it, because that's who I am, right? I like everything, it seems like, but
easy to please.
I'm easy to please, I guess. But I'm just passionate about this band, especially in all the eras. I just think they really nail it. You go to our next episode episode, which if you're trying to go through this sequentially, you would go back 2 episodes.
But I like the way this was presented, though. You instead of just beginning to end, we start a story and then you circle back to it, and we end up where we started. And there's a lot of good movies written like that.
Well, I like to tell my story too with this podcast. So
True.
I came
It's not just the story of the
to
band.
them in the 90s, right? And I went backwards to the 80s. Where we go next is new territory. So there's still more Marillion to cover, but that's all I'm going to give you this week. I think we've had a long haul of fish and 1H song.
Going fishing.
So we went fishing. Anything else from you, man?
No, that was good. I've got a long list of Marillion on my iTunes that you gave me, 10 years
ago, probably.
At least 10 years ago, that there was 2 songs that I probably listened to out of that. I'd skimmed through a lot of the others, and it just didn't strike me. But now I'm looking forward to sitting down and loading that up and just letting it go and just working to that for a while.
Yeah, you should. They're an album band.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Hopefully you guys heard something you like. Go check this band out. They deserve a lot of love. Till next time.
See ya.
Later.